Greetings, hello, hello, hello. My name is Arakko. I want to welcome you aboard our stream today. We have just some really fun stuff in store. We actually never quite got a chance to head into some of our X-Men coverage yesterday. So today over on the channel, we are going to be diving into some of the brand new titles over at Marvel for the X-Men line. We have some really interesting new developments for key characters like Iron Man, and this is spinning out of a direct result with some of his time, with the X Men, particularly with the character of Emma Frost. That's going to be so cool to go ahead and get into, and with how that book is also affecting some of the other comics over in the Marvel Universe. Plus, I'm really thinking that eventually here the main X-Men title is really set to wind down. We're going to be exploring some of the very late stage, late Krakoa comic books that are still in publication alongside titles like Fall of the House of X here. So it's going to be really interesting stuff. Invincible Iron Man is still looking fantastic. I'm still loving some of the Kale New artwork over on that series. Plus, a little bit later here, we are also going to be exploring, some of Iron Man's brand new Mysterium armor that we've already alluded to. Also, frankly, we are just on the heels of the resurrection of Magneto. I am such a big champion of X-Men Red as a comic book series, and just the fact that we have some of those same characters and elements, sticking around in a brand new context. The fact that we have just the wonderful writing of Al Ewing has me more excited to check out what that series has in store than ever before. Plus, there's just such beautiful and wondrous artwork over from Luciano Vecchio. There's just such an interesting and curvy sense of line over in that book. It's such an interesting way to continue X-Men Red as a comic book series. That's going to be so much fun to talk about later on in our stream. Oh my goodness. I'm also taking a look at some of these previews over for the X-Men books in April here, and I'm also seeing that we may have an appearance from Laura Kinney, X-23 and Wolverine. Of course, we'll be discussing that and getting really deep into that. Also, there's just some really interesting covers from Joshua Cassara over on some Avengers comics in April, which is just super weird because Cassara is usually just such, excuse me, just a fantastic artist over on the X-Men books. Grayson Red, welcome aboard the stream today. Grayson Red says, Resurrection of Magneto definitely has me excited. Man, I can't agree more, honestly. That book is just so epic right now. I feel like we left off with Storm in just such an epic place, towards the end of X-Men Red. I'm really interested to see if Apocalypse is going to show up. Plus, we also have some plot threads from that series spinning with the main Defenders book. So it's going to be really cool to see just, how imaginative, just how heady Al Ewing can get over in the debut of that series. I'm so excited to talk about some of these books over on this stream. I can barely contain my excitement. I also found a new way to preview some upcoming comics. My name is Arakko Braddock, and I want to officially welcome you over to our stream today. As we were just alluding to in the introduction for our stream, we're going to be previewing some of the brand new X-Men comic books over in April. Right now, I think the X-Men comic books are so much fun because we are in such a late stage status quo for some of these characters. It feels like these books are getting so dark, they're getting so scary. They're introducing all these plot threads that have been percolating in the background of these X-Men comics for years. At this point, I just can't bear to see where some of these clones of Nathaniel Essex are going to show up next, including characters like Mother Righteous. I'm so excited to see how the evil robot Nimrod is going to be coordinating over with Orcus and Moira. Plus, we're going to be checking in on some brand new storylines over for Ultimate Spider-Man. We're also going to be checking in on the latest issue of X-Force. X-Force is in a super interesting place. Once again, the late stage Krakoan horrors are definitely infecting some of the pages of the main X-Force books and turning one of the greatest allies of X-Force against the entire team. That's going to be super fun to check in on that. Without further ado, here, why don't we go ahead and kick off our first news story of the day? This is a preview at the beloved brand new comic book, Ultimate Spider Man. This one coming in over from Anthony Blackwood on Marvel.com. Ultimate Spider Man 2 First Look pits Peter Parker against his first supervillain. Check out a preview of Jonathan Hickman and Marco Cicchetto's Ultimate Spider Man 2, including a first look at Ultimate Shocker. So I am in a very strange relationship with Marvel's latest Ultimate Spider-Man reboot. I definitely like some aspects of the series, but I think as a whole, Marvel Comics is playing this series way, way too safe. I feel like we've gotten so many recent Spider-Man reboots, and I'm just having a hard time picturing what makes this reboot, special or different as opposed to what we've seen before. A lot of fans are latching on to the status quo of Peter Parker and Mary Jane in a married relationship, which is interesting, but it doesn't serve as the base of the entire series. However, towards the end of the first issue of Ultimate Spider-Man, we got a really interesting connection over to Tony Stark and some of the brand new team of Ultimates characters. I would say as a whole, that is the main aspect that is keeping me interested in Ultimate Spider-Man. I'm curious to see if the Maker is going to be involved in this series as well. Let's go ahead and check in on what Marvel.com has in store with this brand new Shocker character. Last week, Ultimate Spider-Man 1 was the most talked about launch in recent Marvel Comics history, hailed as a fully realized and fresh take and one of the most eagerly awaited new comics of 2024. The issue's introduction of the Parker family, including a very much alive Uncle Ben, has shown fans just how extraordinarily different Jonathan Hickman and Marco Cicchetto's vision for Spider-Man storytelling will be. Today, get a sneak peek at the excitement that lies in Ultimate Spider-Man issue 2 on sale February 21st. Marvel's new Ultimate Universe was shaped by the evil Reed Richards, known as the Maker. Traveling back in time on a parallel Earth, the Maker prevented the young Peter Parker from ever being bit by that fateful radioactive spider. Now, 20 years later, the universe's own Tony Stark has given Peter the chance to reclaim the heroic destiny that was stolen from him. Yeah, once again, I think the backdrop of the Maker and the brand new Ultimate Universe is definitely the most compelling aspect of Ultimate Spider-Man, and I hope some of those elements, excuse me, will just continue to be utilized, as this book sort of matures and gets into some of those later issues here. Peter won't be the only Parker embracing on new adventures and taking down supervillains. Peter's beloved Uncle Ben is an award-winning journalist, and alongside his trusted partner J. Jonah Jameson, he'll pursue the truth of their corrupt world and the unrest that's stirring around every corner. Starting with discovering the identity and motives of the newly emerged Green Goblin. Get a glimpse at all this and more in today's all-new preview. Excuse me just one moment here. All right, let's go ahead and check this one out. My love for this character is no secret to anyone, Cicchetto shared. As soon as I received Jonathan Hickman's plot of the series, I was immediately fascinated with how he managed to create something truly fresh and new, while keeping the spirit and essence of the web-slinger intact. I really love the dialogue and got chills drawing these scenes. We have the opportunity and privilege to create our version of Spider-Man, and for me to create the entire design of the series. I'm really happy that the creative team over on Ultimate Spider-Man appears to be enjoying some of the material that they're working on. Even though this series hasn't quite captured me as a reader, I really do think the aesthetic of the issue is really beautiful. The way that there's just such minimalistic, background details and just really bright hues within the colors makes Ultimate Spider-Man just so wonderful and breezy to look at over as a comic book series. I also think that we have some of that same aesthetic in the God series from Jonathan Hickman and Valerio Schiti, which also influences, I think, some of the visual design for Ultimate Spider Man. But I really do think it impacts the books in positive ways and makes these series look really, really gorgeous. I also think that some of that same influence can also be seen within like Pepe Larraz's work over in House of X as well. Check out all new interior artwork, variant covers, and Shiketo's original design sheets now and pre-order Ultimate Spider-Man today. Okay, why don't we go ahead and look at the brand new interiors that we have over on Ultimate Spider-Man issue 2? Give me just one moment while I go ahead and pull this up here. Okay, excellent. So here is a preview over the second issue's cover coming in from artist Marco Cicchetto. And we also have some preview pages over for the second issue. Really think there's really gorgeous negative space, really strong reaction shots, and just some great facial expressions over from Cicchetto as well. Also, just really love how many like individual strands of hair and how much detail there is in terms of the backgrounds here. On this next page, we get a little bit of a meetup over between Ben Parker and J. Jonah Jameson. I really enjoyed some of the plot threads that were set up over at the Daily Bugle between these two characters, and also how Kingpin had an influence on that storyline as well. However, I do think that some of the character interactions and some of the dialogue was a little bit cheesy. I also do think this scenario with the two characters in Asana is also at risk of being a little bit silly as well. But overall, here, I'm really interested to see if Jonathan Hickman will be able to tone down the dialogue and just create an interesting place for these two characters to interact here. We also have a preview of the brand new Spider-Man suit that Peter Parker got over towards the end of the first issue of Ultimate Spider-Man. I am really interested to see what kind of like brand new gadgets and technology this new suit can evoke here. I also think there's just a wonderful sense of page design as well from Marco Cicchetto. This is just strikingly different from some of the plainclothes character scenes we've seen over in the first issue of the series. Also, really strong just reaction shots over with the brand new villain of the Ultimate Shocker. I'm really appreciating some of the panel bleeds once again in the negative space of the issue. I almost think that like the second, third, and fourth panels can be a little bit claustrophobic here. It almost makes me feel overwhelmed as a reader. I'm almost wondering here if Marco Cicchetto as an artist is trying to evoke that feeling over for the reader. Wow, really, really gorgeous double page spread from Marco Cicchetto. I know it's a little bit cut off over on our screen, but I am kind of battling over with Marvel.com's website here. Yeah, really fantastic designs over for the character of the Green Goblin. I am a little bit worried about Harry Osborn becoming the Green Goblin, just making this Spider Man comic book as a whole feel a little bit more derivative as a series. I'm really hoping that there's some interesting plot twist, there's some unique element that'll set this Ultimate Spider Man series apart from some other comic books. Grayson Red, totally respect your opinion, but I thought Ultimate Spider Man 1 knocked it out of the park for me. It's the first time I'm reading Peter Parker in over a decade. You know what? I totally respect where you're coming from. I am so happy that more people are getting invested in reading comics over with the Ultimate Spider Man series. And I also want the book as a whole to appeal a little bit more to me. I'm really hoping it's going to get better as time goes on, and we're going to see some brand new elements of Spider Man lore inverted that makes me as excited to read Ultimate Spider Man as just the main core Amazing Spider Man series. I really want this book to get good, and I'm really interested in checking out this second issue to see if they have a little bit more of what I'm looking for here. Yeah, I'm a little bit afraid of the Ultimate Shocker also turning out to be a little bit too derivative as well here, but I'm hoping that Jonathan Hickman will be able to pull a rabbit out of the hat or just introduce some interesting tie back to maybe the other Ultimate characters. I did see kind of like a post over on Twitter comparing the Ultimate Shocker's Gauntlet to Ultimate Iron Man. So it'd be really interesting if maybe Ultimate Shocker was able to steal some of his technology and if there's any tie over between those characters as well. Man, what a absolutely just gorgeous cover. It's definitely a little bit more different than some of the other amazing Spider-Man covers here. This one is illustrated from Mateus Manhanini, who has illustrated just so many amazing covers over for the core God series from Marvel. Oh, this one is really nice as well. Let's see who illustrated this one. Daikruwan. And we also have a cover from Elizabeth Torque. I've really found that these covers play up some of the relationship aspects between Peter and Mary Jane. I think it's cool that we have yet another Elizabeth Torque cover on the second issue of Amazing of the I almost said Amazing Spider-Man, but this one is Ultimate Spider-Man. And then here is the A cover over from Marco Cicchetto. All right, so I am really interested in seeing how Ultimate Spider-Man develops. I really want to see the book play up some of those sci-fi concepts and introduce more ties over between Peter Parker and Tony Stark as well as the Maker. I want to go ahead and spotlight this article coming in directly from CBR.com. I think this is a really fun one talking about some brand new X-Men characters who might be joining the MCU, or rather should join the MCU. This one is written over from Frederick Rion from CBR.com. The X-Men are some of Marvel's most iconic heroes, and they are finally coming to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. While plenty of people know about the X-Men, usually only a few characters come to mind. Big names like Storm, Cyclops, Wolverine are at the forefront when talking about the X-Men. This makes sense as most films and TV shows about the team feature some combination of the original 5 X-Men or the incredibly popular giant-sized team. There have been some less popular characters, heroes like Darwin and Banshee, but there is a giant roster of characters that are just as deserving of the spotlight. So I really like some of the characters that are spotlighted over in this article. One of the first characters introduced here is the character of Synch, Everett Thomas, who was first introduced to some of the X-Men comics over in 1994. It's been so cool to watch Synch's profile really become bolstered over during the time of the Underground X-Men during the Fall of X status quo over at Marvel Comics. I want to go ahead and see what CBR has to say about Synch's brand new role and just how far he's come as a mutant, during the Fall of X era over at Krakoa. Synch has been one of the most powerful and useful abilities out of all the X-Men. He can copy other people's powers by syncing his bioelectric field with other individuals. Synch is also incredibly skilled with using his powers and could be an Omega level mutant. He has even been able to utilize other mutants' powers even better than they have on some occasions, which could translate well to the big screen. Yeah, so really no reference of Synch during the Krakoan era, but it's also cool to hear about where Synch came from, being that he was originally a part of the Generation X team. Let's go ahead and take a look at our 8th character here. This one is Firestar Angelica Angel Jones. Angelica has been such a great part of the main X-Men comics. She's recently gone undercover at Orchis. She was assigned by Jean Grey on a mission there to get more knowledge and to report back to the X-Men characters. We even saw her report to Iron Man in one of the most recent issues of X-Men as well. Angelica Jones, or Firestar, is pretty unique among comic book characters. She's not actually from a comic book. She first appeared in the Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends animated series as a roommate crime fighter partner of the titular Webhead. Eventually, she would appear in the comics as a member of multiple teams like the New Warriors, the Avengers, and of course, the X-Men. Freddie Lane, really happy to hear you're excited for Ultimate Spider-Man. Once again here, I am in the side of the readers over with that book. I really want it to be absolutely fantastic. I am hoping that once again here, Marvel Comics going to introduce some more Maker characters and really build the intrigue on that book. I'm not really that familiar with Cecilia Reyes, but I want to learn more about this character. Cecilia Reyes is a lot like a lot of other mutants seen in the X Men comics. Excuse me, unlike. She has no interest in being a hero. Cecilia has been an active member of the X Men before, and her initial appearances saw her working on the team. However, she quickly realized that she didn't want the danger and excitement that came with being a full time hero and left to start her medical practice. Cecilia can create a psionic force field, so it looks like she's been affiliated over with the New Mutants as well. Very cool character. I'd be interested to see her pop up in a future X Men book. Our number 6 character is just a very, very strange Grant Morrison creation here. This is Glob. Robert Herman created in New X Men 117. While the X Men are known for being mutants, most of them look like regular humans. Glob is one of the more extreme examples of a distinct body type. Instead of skin, his body is made up of transparent pink gelatin, which Glob can use and regrow. While it is an incredibly specific power, it's been shown to be useful. Glob hasn't always been a heroic X-Men. He's been a part of the Omega Gang and the Hellions, both of which aren't exactly good guys. However, he currently works with the X-Men for the betterment of mutant kind. Bringing Glob in would be a great chance to have more visually distinct members of the team, which could lead to some fan-favorite storyline adaptations. I feel like Marvel, over the past couple years, was doing a good job with the character of Glob. I remember seeing him pop up in like so many, different distinctive X-Men titles. But I can't say that I remember seeing him recently. I really do think he adds just an interesting element of humor over to the dynamic of the X-Men, and I always love seeing him just whenever he shows up across any of the comic books. Richter. Richter has a unique power set. This is Julio Richter, created in 1987 in X Factor 17. Richter, or Julio Richter, got his start as a part of X Factor and has been a part of the larger X-Men mythos ever since. He's got the ability to manipulate and generate seismic waves, which he often uses to create an earthquake-like effect. He's also an accomplished detective, which is pretty unusual for the X-Men. Richter is probably most famous for his relationship with fellow X-Force hero Shatterstar. In 2009, the couple shared the first on-panel kiss between two male superheroes in Marvel's publication history. Bringing Richter into the MCU would be a great way to tell more LGBTQ stories in the universe. Okay, I am a bit of a newer X-Men fan, especially in terms of the comics. I forgot that Richter was in a relationship over with Shatterstar. They shared a kiss at one point. I think that is absolutely amazing. I think it is so interesting that they have that relationship with characters that appear to be so just masculine in their presentation there. This is definitely an interesting item here that makes the X-Men as a comic book series feel, unique and diverse and different as opposed to other comics here. This is super cool. Number 4, Mirage is an underrated X-Men leader. This is Danielle Moonstar, Mirage, over from the New Mutants. Danielle Danny Moonstar, or Mirage, isn't well known outside of die-hard X-Men fans, which is a real shame. She's a great character with some unique abilities. Mirage has psionic abilities that allow her to communicate with people and animals and create illusions. This can be used in a myriad of ways, and Mirage often uses it to frighten her enemies by showing them their worst fears. Danny has appeared on film before in Fox's ill-fated The New Mutants adaptation. That movie's poor performance could scare Disney away from the Any Mutant characters, but that would be a mistake. Mirage's unique powers and long-standing leadership in the X-Men would make her a great pick for the MCU's lineup. I do think it's a little bit sad to consider that Fox adaptation of the New Mutants film, The New Mutants characters are so important to Marvel Comics right now, especially the character of Magic. I think if that film, caught a wider fan base and was able to just really like bolster the profile of some of those characters, I think the X Men would probably be in better shape as a franchise here. I am hoping that just some of the damage the movie has done can be reversed in a future adaptation, and that Marvel just doesn't give up over on the New Mutants characters. The Stepford Cuckoos are 5 mutants for the price of one. The Stepford Cuckoos are a group of telepaths that were initially made to infiltrate and destroy the X Men. They're all clones of Emma Frost and were initially trained by their mother, although none of them realized the connection. The Cuckoos are powerful telepaths, but also represent that comic book weirdness the MCU should continue embracing. So the Stepford Cuckoos are Celeste, Esme, Irma, Phoebe, and Sophie Cuckoo. Oh, I didn't realize they had a name actually with 5 in 1, created in New X Men 118. As Emma Frost's clone daughters, the Cuckoos have gained all their powers, including telepathy and a secondary diamond form. These powers could make them a key component of the MCU's X Men. Most mutant teams feature a telepath or two, and what would be better than a cadre of powerful quintuplet telepaths? Now, I am a big proponent, I am a massive advocate of the Stepford Cuckoos. I think of all the characters across the X Men line, Emma Frost has a really strong personality, and giving her like clones that are an extension of that with the Stepford Cuckoos is such a fascinating way to like stretch out and utilize Emma Frost's character in a different way here. I think this is just a really fantastic way to expand Emma Frost's character. And also, during the timeline of Krakoa, all the writers have used the Cuckoos in some really interesting ways. I love some of their outfits during the last Hellfire Gala as well. Number 2, Warlock is a mechanical alien mutant. This is another character who's been used in some really interesting ways during the timeline of Krakoa as well. He was created in New Mutants issue 18 from 1984. Warlock isn't a human at all. He's actually part of the Technarchy, an alien race of mechanical organisms that subsist on the life energy of other organisms. He is, however, a mutant Technarchy. Although his mutation is having empathy for other sentient beings, Warlock's main powers are a part of his alien biology, allowing him to shapeshift and manipulate most forms of energy. Okay, let's go and hop over to our number 1 pick. This is Betsy Braddock, Captain Britain, first created on Captain Britain issue 8 in 1976. Betsy Braddock has a publication history a mile long. She got a start as a supporting character to her brother, the original Captain Britain. However, she quickly migrated over to X-Men Comics and joined the team as Psylocke. However, she quickly body swapped with the assassin Quanon and spent too many years in each other's bodies. Now, however, the two are back in their original bodies, and Betsy has become the new Captain Britain. An MCU adaptation could streamline this and make Betsy into Captain Britain from the beginning. The hero has lots of great powers, like telepathy, telekinesis, and her iconic psychic knife. This, combined with her awesome Captain Britain armor, would make for a truly memorable hero. In terms of Betsy Braddock, I think this is a character who is just so incredibly compelling, with all her fascinating ties to British X-Men characters over in the Marvel Universe. I am really hoping that Marvel will release a brand new outlet over for Betsy really soon. I also want to see an MCU adaptation over for this character. I just think she is so compelling, and during the Krakoa era has become even more fascinating. I don't think Marvel has done the best job following up on some of those elements with Betsy during Ten of Swords, but I still think just as a whole here, Betsy has had some really strong moments, during her time over in Krakoa with the X-Men as well. Okay, well, I thought that was just a super fun article talking about, some characters that are key to recent X-Men continuity who should be utilized over in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We're going to go ahead and jump right into some of our X-Men coverage. I'm just super excited to go ahead and jump into today's stories. We're going to kick things off with some coverage over on X-Force issue 48. This one is going to be super fun. It features the character of Beast getting some revenge over on Wolverine and some of his fellow, teammates over in the main X-Force title here. Hey, nobody except me. Thank you so much for coming to check out the stream today. Let's see some Marvel solicits. Happy 2024. I would honestly love seeing some Marvel solicits. I'm going to double check on that right now. I don't think they've dropped yet. Let's see what we got here. No, still nothing yet. Still nothing yet, but I will keep a close eye out over on Marvel solicits. I'm anticipating that we'll probably get them really, really early next week. All right, without further ado, though, let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about X-Force. We're going to see Beast really fighting back against the team of X-Men characters. Lol, I was just more referring to these previews you do in general, not actually the latest solicits. No problem at all. No problem at all. I'm still really glad to have you here. Let's go ahead and jump into X-Force issue 48. Target Beast begins here. He was their mission commander. Now he is their mission. At last, X-Force takes the fight to Henry McCoy, also known as Beast, and he will answer for his crimes. This one's coming in over from Adventures in Poor Taste. All right, and also this issue written over from Benjamin Percy, featuring art by Robert Gill and Guru EFX. And we have the main cover from Daniel Acuna. So we're going to start the issue off over in the greenhouse, the hidden North Pole base of the X-Force. So this is just a really cool way to kick off this issue of X-Force, because in the last installment, the issue just had this breakneck pace, and the cliffhanger was Beast just like shooting into, basically the X-Force's base here. So it's just such a cool way to follow up on the really intense cliffhanger from last issue. And I also just can't stress how beautiful the colors are on the page from Guru EFX here. Just the way that we peek into, Beast's sight over on his rifle towards Omega Red, super, super fascinating. And as you can see here, Beast is not pulling any shots here. It looks like he takes the punch and shoots directly into Omega Red. He is sneaking directly into the X-Force base as well. Check out this panel bleed over from Robert Gill featuring Beast. That is super, super cool. In some of these next panels, we get Beast looking into, I believe, the character of North Star here, just kind of sneaking around in the shadows of the X-Force base. And we even see Beast, go directly into Sage's computer. So he's kind of snuck directly into the X-Force base and has really caused a lot of chaos here. Nobody except me. Fall of X, Rise of Powers of 10 is great so far. I'm actually excited about Moira as a character again. I agree. I did see some criticism of people kind of pointing out that Moira as a character hasn't had that many storylines like post Inferno, after Jonathan Hickman left the X-Men titles. So putting the spotlight back on Moira right now as the Krakoan Age winds down is the absolute right way for the X-Men to wind down some of those titles. Also, Wolverine's Sabretooth has started with a bang as well. Wonder how Beast may play in that. I have not had the chance to check that out amidst all the other X-Men books, but I'm really glad to hear that somebody is enjoying that crossover. I was a little bit worried that the Wolverine Sabretooth stuff was going to be a little bit redundant, and I'm also wondering how they're going to be able to follow up on the really fascinating like plot thread with Sabretooth in the pit and put Wolverine against Sabretooth. I'm going to have to go ahead and check that one out and report back to you guys here. Okay, so in the background, we have Sage kind of talking about Beast, unaware of the fact that Beast is like already broken into their base and is on, his and is actually on Sage's computer already. As soon as she finds out, she just runs over and immediately is in a lot of duress here. She says, X Force, this is Sage. All units report. He's back. Beast is back. So I think that is just a super harrowing way to end our cliffhanger over on X Force 48. I am super excited about this book in so many of the late stage Krakoan X-Men horror-esque comic books and how they are all set to go ahead and wind down here. Next up, we're actually going to dive into one of our biggest news stories of the show. Okay, so I know we are all just massive, massive fans of X-Men Red. I am just incredibly excited to see what Al Ewing has in store for his upcoming Resurrection of Magneto series. And we have a brand new preview. And let's see, it looks like an interview coming in directly from CBR.com from Dave Richards. Storm embarks on a perilous quest to free a friend in Al Ewing's Resurrection of Magneto. Al Ewing talks about the Resurrection of Magneto, a miniseries which sends Storm on an epic quest to free and revive the titular master of magnetism. When the Krakoan era began and Marvel's mutants found a way to conquer death, Magneto had already lived a long life of struggle, heartbreak, and sacrifice. So it's not surprising that he gave up on the Krakoan resurrection protocols to fit in with the culture of his new home on the planet formerly known as Mars, Arakko. He perished shortly after, and the citizens of Krakoa soon found themselves in a desperate war for existence against the anti-mutant organization known as Orcus. That war has gone so badly, and now the mutants need their master of magnetism to get back into the fight. Storm sets out to do that and free her friend from torment in Resurrection of Magneto, a 4-issue miniseries by writer Al Ewing and artist Luciano Vecchio that kicks off January 24th. Her journey will become a magical and cosmic quest fraught with dangerous confrontations with several infamous and powerful foes. CBR spoke with Ewing about the nature of Storm's quest, planning for the series where Magneto ended up after he died, and saying goodbye to the Krakoan era of X-Men, which wraps up in the first half of 2024. Yeah, it's going to be just incredibly epic to see some of these Krakoan era series wind down, especially with Magneto and Storm over in Resurrection of Magneto here. Magneto perished in the pages of X-Men Red in 2022. Resurrection of Magneto begins in 2024. How long have you known you wanted to tell this story? What can you tell us about why you wanted to tell this particular tale with Magneto? Al Ewing says the decision to kill Magneto came in hand with the decision to bring him back. And I knew his resurrection was going to come in the form of a quest undertaken by Storm at roughly the end of my time with her. Assuming I got more than a year to tell the story, and we've pretty much stuck with that. Though a couple of the fine details have evolved, and we've told other stories in the meantime, but his death was always going to be the first act of the story. As for why Magneto, then when we did the deed, Fall of X was still very much in the planning stage. But I think deep down the idea that one of the X-Men's most powerful members and one of Charles' oldest friends would be off the table, leaving him completely alone, had a lot of appeal from a story point of view. It's an opportunity that put Magneto into the fire, which always appeals with any character. I've heard a lot of criticism about the fact that Marvel is resurrecting Magneto so soon after they killed him. I'm really hoping here that Al Ewing will have some story element that'll make this plot thread feel a little bit cohesive, because I do think that there is some merit towards this criticism. I feel like we need to have a brand new reason as to why Magneto is interested in living again, especially as he's lived just such a long life in terms of his relationship with Charles Xavier. I'm hoping that in the resurrection of Magneto, we'll get the answers to all those questions and they'll be compelling enough to make Magneto an interesting character in the Marvel Universe moving forward. One of the biggest questions about Resurrection of Magneto, especially given his willingness to forego Krakoan resurrection protocols, is why. What can you tell us about the situation that makes Storm consider bringing Magneto back? Here it is. This is the $50 million question. Let's see how Al Ewing answers this one. On a practical level, he's just needed on the fight. On another level, she knows he's in pain. Magneto's landed in a sphere of judgment, and Aurora wants to offer him mercy. And the fact that she's allowed to do it all by the higher powers of the Marvel Universe means that on some level it needs to be done. Which means there's more to this than just bringing Magneto back to life. The quest won't end there, and Storm's going to find herself facing some of the X-Men's greatest and most powerful foes from over the years. That's kind of interesting here. That's a really interesting answer. It's not the one that I expected to hear from Al Ewing. Really hearing him just say that on a very technical level, Magneto is needed in the fight against Orcus, I think that's super compelling, but also this reference to Magneto being in some sort of pain is also just a super compelling plot point. Maybe he hasn't been able to make peace with some of the demons he thought he would within the context of his death. At least Al Ewing is really thinking it through. So this is the preview over on Resurrection and Magneto 1. This is the page that kind of introduces that status quo with Magneto. I think it is absolutely amazing from Luciano Vecchio. It's just designed beautifully and looks so harrowing. I think the text here where Magneto is just saying, Aurora, I was wrong, is super, super interesting. Also, the way that the helmets that Magneto has used across the Krakoan era are strewn about the floor is once again just a really interesting way to design and introduce the page here. In a strange and wondrous world like the Marvel Universe, death is not necessarily the end of a character's journey, and the solicits for issue 2 of Resurrection of Magneto suggest that Max Eisenhardt has entered a mysterious realm after his death. Is that the case? What can you tell us about where Magneto's spirit is when you pick up with him in this series? Okay, interesting answer from Al Ewing. He gets a little cagey saying, I absolutely don't want to say. The afterlife of the Marvel Universe works like this, so I've approached it more as a magical journey than a religious one. But essentially, Magneto has passed through beyond the waiting room into the other parts of mystery and is now in a sphere of judgment. Beyond that, I feel like anything I say in an interview like this just distracts readers from their own interpretation of what's on the page. I like that. I like that it's not so literal that Magneto is in this one specific place, but that it's going to be a little bit more ethereal in the composition of the series. What else can you tell us about the plot and action of the resurrection of Magneto? Well, without wanting to spoil too much, it's a quest, and finding Magneto and convincing him to return to the world is just one step of that quest. You can't do a quest like this without facing a dragon or paying a cost. And the dragon Storm and Magneto have to face is one of the biggest and baddest the X-Men have ever faced, and it's a necessary battle. All this should hopefully tie into the other action of Fall of X in ways readers will understand when they put the pieces together. I mean, I'm thinking at like more of a base level, Resurrection of Magneto is going to tie into probably Fall of the House of X, as we have Magneto probably rejoin Xavier in the battle against Orcus here. Who are some of the other supporting players in the story? Will we see the return of some of the X-Men Red cast members? Will you get a chance to pen some characters you haven't written in a while or at all? It's a showcase for Storm and Magneto, but they do link up with at least one other ally I've returned to a number of times, and the enemies they run into are certainly characters I haven't written before or not for a long time. Okay, I did want to add some additional commentary towards this because in some of the preview pages from Luciano Vecchio, we get a return to some of the characters over from the Defenders franchise. So we have Dr. Adam Brashear, the Blue Marvel, as well as the character of Tala. So already we have some meta continuity established from a previous book that Al Ewing was working on over at Marvel. And also just the AI character of the Enigma, which is so important to Rise of the Powers of 10, was also first introduced in that same series too. So it's really interesting to see some of the connections between Defenders and these X-Men comics. Finally, you've been part of the Krakoan era for quite a while now. How does it feel to be penning your final tale in that era? Looking back, what were some of your favorite stories from the larger narrative? I'm sorry to leave Krakoa behind me. It's been a wonderful story and a really wonderful collective of writers, artists, and editors. I'm happy with the work I've done and the story I've told here, but over the course of this whole tapestry, I have to say I've been a huge fan of New Mutants. The various Hellfire galas, including Planet Size X-Men Judgment Day as a whole, Ten of Swords, and obviously the original House and Powers were such an incredible swing to start it all. But there's not a single book in the line I wouldn't give flowers to. Everyone in the office was bringing great and wonderful things to the table, and I've been privileged to see it happen from behind the scenes. I'll end it with a thank you to everyone who's been following us over the years and to everyone who's picking up this book. Here's hoping I can blow your mind one last time before I leave the House of X. There you go. There you have it here. Resurrection of Magneto. Issue 1 is due on sale January 24th. We will have a full review of the brand new series. I just think it is so exciting to finally see Al Ewing wind down over on his multi-year run on the Krakoan era of the X-Men comics. He's even bringing some of his other X-Men titles and going beyond his X-Men titles with comics like Defenders being referenced. He's done so much work with Storm as a character as well as Magneto. Seeing him revisit that just one last time here before Krakoa winds down should be so, so interesting. Okay, let's go ahead and look into the future of what the X-Men have in store. These are some brand new comic books over in April. Fall of the House of X has now split into Fall of the House of X. Let's preview what Marvel has in store for some of my favorite comic books in all of existence here. April's X titles assemble the Avengers, bring back Magneto, and more. By now, fans have experienced the explosive debut issues of Fall of the House of X and Rise of the Powers of 10, but these twin series are only the beginning of the dramatic finale to the X-Men's acclaimed Krakoan era. Let's see here. So we have Avengers issue 12. This one is super cool because it introduces Iron Man within the context of his Mysterium element that he's used to create a brand new suit of armor here. It's also just super interesting seeing this suit of armor illustrated by Stuart Immonen. This issue is written over from Jed MacKay, featuring art from Francesco Mortarino. The fall of X comes for Earth's mightiest heroes. The Avengers have hung in space over the Earth, a sword of Damocles over Orcus for too long. But, knowing they only had one chance to strike, they waited while Iron Man prepared. Now, on his signal, it is time, and the Avengers only know one way to strike: hard. Avengers as a comic book series has been moving way too slow for me as a reader. The fact that Jed MacKay is going to tie into some of the main X-Men issues over with the villain of Orcus is super, super compelling. I'll definitely check this issue of Avengers out and will report back if I appreciate it here. I think that this Joshua Cassara cover over for X-Men 33 is so beautiful. The composition of all these disparate X-Men characters that have been so key over to Jerry Duggan's run on X-Men are so cool. Let's go ahead and check out the solicit on X-Men 33. X-Men Assemble. If there were ever a time to rally the troops and take the fight to the enemy, it's now. stand side by side with the X-Men as they head to their final stand. They can't stop all of us. I'm also really wondering at this point if this could be the last issue of Jerry Duggan's X-Men, or if we have at least one more in store here. Nonetheless, though, I'm so excited to see characters like, Doctor Doom's X-Men team up with our underground X-Men characters. Plus, we have Sync, we have Magic, Cyclops, Wolverine, Shadowcat, Forge. So many interesting X-Men characters over in Jerry Duggan's run appear to be winding down. I am also just such a massive fan of what Joshua Cassara has accomplished on this series visually. I think Cassara's art has just been the perfect accommodation to some of the trees and just nature elements within Krakoa here. Okay, so here is Invincible Iron Man 17. This one is really cool because it has Tony over in his Mysterium armor. This one written by Jerry Duggan, featuring art by Patch Zurcher and a cover from Cale New. Iron Man is Mutantkind's last hope. Tony Stark's greatest accomplishment may have just become the world's most advanced coffin. Trapped with a deactivated armor, Tony must face down his demons and his legacy. Can Iron Man escape, or will Mutantkind's hopes die along with him? Okay, really cool stuff here over in Invincible Iron Man 17. I feel like Jerry Duggan is crafting a really personal narrative over in that series, with Tony Stark writing his autobiography. I'm just also a little bit thrilled to see Tony kind of rise back up and establish this brand new armor, and also just really take hold of the fall of the House of X era. Plus, we even get to look at the future of Resurrection of Magneto over with the 4th issue. This one's still written by Al Ewing, featuring art by Luciano Vecchio, and a cover by the excellent Stefano Caselli. Return of the King, the master of magnetism, has returned to the world, but it is not the world he left, nor is Magneto the same man who left it. His death changed him for the better or for the worse. And when he sees what Orchis has done to mutant-kind, will it change him again? Yeah, I think the psychological aspect of Magneto is a really compelling plot point within the resurrection of his character. Really see him go up against Orchis and watch the Krakoan era fall, during the Hellfire Gala. I really wonder how Max is going to be able to react to that, and if he's going to be able to keep a strong handle on his psychological profile here. Okay, we also have the next issue of Wolverine, chapter 47 here. This one interesting because it introduces Laura Kinney, X-23, or now known as Wolverine, into the core series. This one written by Victor Laval and Benjamin Percy, featuring art by Jeff Shaw and a cover by Lionel Francis Yu. Savage Escape, Sabretooth War Part 7, Laura Kinney must escape the clutches of the savage Sabretooth. Will Victor Creed's weapon spell the end for Logan? A can't-miss issue. Okay, so it looks like we may have a new character. Maybe this character has been around before in the Marvel Universe, but interesting to see the savage Sabretooth show up and fight back against Laura. I do think it's cool how we have like a different context for the Wolverine Sabretooth fight with these different characters as opposed to Logan fighting Victor. Very cool stuff over in Wolverine 47. This issue of Avengers is so interesting to me because it features Joshua Cassara cover illustrating a Stark Sentinel that screams X-Men, but it's actually an issue of Avengers. This one written by Jed MacKay, featuring art by Francesco Mortarino and a cover by Joshua Cassara. Once again, it looks like this one is also tying into Orchis and some of the X-Men characters too. So I'm really happy that once again, Jed MacKay will be able to take a step back and maybe write into what the X-Men comics are doing right now. The Avengers versus the Stark Sentinel program. Orchis's counterstrike puts the Avengers on the back foot as the true extent of the Stark Sentinel program is revealed. Can Earth's mightiest heroes stand against impossible odds, or will they fall against the metal onslaught? So, one cool thing that's happening in the main Iron Man series is that Riri Williams is currently working on getting Mysterium so they can build a production line of robots that are powerful enough to fight back against these Stark Sentinels that Orcus is currently manufacturing. So, there is just so many cool plot threads, so many cool X-Men elements that are being introduced into continuity as Fall of X winds down and Fall of the House of X debuts here. I am so excited about Dead X-Men, which picks up on some of the Dead X-Men characters as a result of the Hellfire Gala. Part of the reason why this series is going to be so much fun is because it's written by Steve Folks, who's just done a wonderful job with the core Spider-Woman series from Marvel, and especially with Dark X-Men. This is the fourth issue of the series, and it features some really phenomenal artwork. Bernard Chang is such an expressive artist that does a great job rendering like tension on characters' faces. Vincenzo Carratù has a really curvy line. David Baldeon, a really strong creator. And of course, I love Lucas Werneck as a creator with some of his contributions to Immortal X-Men. Everything ends. Prodigy, Dazzler, Frenzy, Cannonball, and Jubilee have gone farther and risked more than any X-Men team before. Now, at the end of everything, the final fate of Krakoa rests on these five mutants. Will the dead X-Men save the seed of the future or kill it before it can even be planted? Dead X-Men is really interesting because some of the characters that are utilized in the book are pretty high-profile mutants. I'm specifically talking about characters like Jubilee. I feel like Cannonball is pretty important, and even Dazzler as well. Once again, I think this book is just going to be nothing short of phenomenal. I'm interested how it's going to tie into some of the other late-stage Krakoan comics and just what additional plot threads are going to be referenced. Okay, I have not yet had the chance to check out the latest issue of Cable. I think I've heard some good things here. This one is written by Fabian Nicieza, featuring art by Scott Eaton and a cover by comic book legend Whilce Portacio. This is the third issue of the series. Protect the future no matter the cost. Cable and his younger counterpart Nate are closer than ever to uncovering the origins of the Neocracy and putting an end to a bloody future before it can come to pass. But each step closer also brings them further into the crosshairs of the mysterious parvenu. With the walls closing in, there's no shoulder, there's no one else they can trust. But with the weight of the world on their shoulder, will Cable and Nate be able to bear the burden together, or will they crumble under the weight? So really cool how they're utilizing the dual Cable characters in the Marvel Universe during the Krakoa comics. I hope that continues in the X-Men from the Ashes reboot. This is part 8 of Ben Percy and Victor Laval's Wolverine and Sabretooth story, The Sabretooth War. It's a family affair as Graydon Creed, the maligned son of Victor Creed, Sabretooth, brings the fight to his father. The winner gets Wolverine, or what's left of him. This one is illustrated by Corey Smith and still features just a really terrifying cover here by Lionel Francis Yu. Yeah, I am thrilled to be able to take a look at the second issue's cover for X-Men Forever. This one is like almost a sequel to Immortal X-Men, winding down some of the really fascinating plot threads across the Krakoan era, and it's written by one of my absolute favorite writers on the X-Men books, Kieran Gillen. X-Men Forever 2, illustrated by Luca Maresca, featuring a really amazing cover here by Mark Brooks, showing Krakoa going up against a Stark Sentinel with characters like Ascani and Jubilee and a Cannonball in the background, as well as an appearance here from Exodus. Super interesting to see some characters from Dead X-Men utilized on X-Men Forever. Immortal means forever. The fight for Krakoa's future begins here. Since Rise of the Powers of 10 began, there have been a few mysteries unrevealed. Now, writer Kieran Gillen fills in the gap of what happened between the end of Immortal X-Men and the beginning of the end of the Krakoan Age. Sunspot, excuse me here. Let's see. Oh, that was Cannonball. Okay. All right. Nobody except me says, fall. Let's see here. Okay, yeah, that was Cannonball. Okay, fantastic. So that is going to be our coverage over on these X Men titles in April. Once again, I am so thrilled with this comic book line. I'm really wondering if the X Men from the Ashes comics, especially in their first wave, are going to make me as interested as these books are. Then again, though, I am so excited to see what Gail Simone might be bringing over to some of those future books here, too. Okay, so we're going to do something a little bit different today to go ahead and close out our stream. We are actually going to be talking about the future, the weeks to come over in Marvel and DC Comics. So, this is kind of the future of what our coverage is going to look like over the next, I would say, 1 to 2 weeks. Let's go ahead and take a look at Dead X Men issue 1 here. This one is on sale January 31st. So not this week, but I believe next week. Death was only the beginning. When the world turned against Krakoa, these 5 mutants lost their lives. But their mission as X-Men is just getting started. To preserve Xavier's dream, they must accomplish the impossible or die again trying. Spinning out from Rise of the Powers of 10, discover who are the dead X-Men. Once again, this one written by Steve Folks, featuring art from Bernard Chang, Jonas Scharf, and Vincenzo Caratu. And we have a cover from the excellent Perry Perez. Okay, perfect. So that is Dead X-Men issue 1. Please look forward to our coverage of that series. Next up, we're going to be talking about the Batman and Robin 2024 annual on January 30th. I know we've primarily talked about Marvel Comics this stream, but we're also going to be talking about the annual for one of my favorite DC comics. Camping chaos for the dynamic duo, father and son road trip. Batman and Robin have gone through hell the last few months, so Bruce decides to take Damian on a camping trip to Bond. But as they try to enjoy the great outdoors, they find a different kind of hunting ground, one that hunts the most dangerous game. Trapped and cut off from the weapons and backup, Batman and Robin must use their surroundings to hold off and take down some of DC's deadliest mercenaries. I wonder if there's going to be any more animal themed characters showing up in the background of any of these Batman and Robin issues. Still just really loving this series. This one is written from Joshua Williamson, featuring art from Howard Porter, colors from Rain Barreto, letters by Steve Wands, and a cover by Howard Porter too. I think it's interesting how close Joshua Williamson and Howard Porter appear to be as creators, with Williamson continuing to kind of team up over with Porter across so many different comic books, whether it be titles like The Flash or Night Terrors as well. So really cool stuff coming to the main Batman and Robin series here. X-Men 31. This one is a little farther out on February 7th. It looks like the main X-Men series from Jerry Duggan and Joshua Cassara is really set to wind down over at Marvel Comics. Let's go ahead and explore what Marvel is going to be doing in issue 31 of an X-Men title that just constantly changes the subject matter. The Ultimate Mutant Hunter. The X-Men lived in fear of Nimrod's creation, and now it's clear why. The ultimate weapon of mutant extinction is ever adapting, ever evolving with only one goal: death to mutant kind. I think this cover is so cool. I'll double check who illustrated it in just a moment here. Nimrod is just such an intriguing character. The way that he was introduced so early in Jonathan Hickman's X-Men run, just as a whole, and is still so important to Marvel continuity, I think is just so fascinating. Also, the way he attacked and was just so violent during the recent Hellfire Gala really makes him just a formidable foe amongst Marvel's X-Men villains as well here. Let's see, so this one is written from Jerry Duggan, featuring art by Phil Noto, letters from Clayton Cowles, and the cover is illustrated from the excellent Joshua Cassara with some colors from Marte Gracia. I think the colors really add a lot of just expression and detail to this cover too. Especially love how Nightcrawler is just bamfing all across the terrifying Nimrod robot here too. Okay, I'm also interested in talking about the future of the Birds of Prey series. This is one of my all time favorite ongoings at DC. This one is on sale February 6th, so it'll be on sale in just a couple weeks. All Out War on Themyscira. It's All Out War on Themyscira as the team faces off against the mythical Megara. Can the birds overcome this ancient evil, or will one of them have to pay the ultimate price? Okay, so Birds of Prey issue 6 is written by Kelly Thompson. And if this cover's credits are to believed, it looks like we're getting the fantastic reappearance of the excellent Leonardo Romero with colors from Jordi Belair. There's letters from Clayton Cowles, and of course, the cover was also illustrated over from Leonardo Romero, too. You know, I want to be totally honest. I feel like this arc where the Birds of Prey are trying to rescue Sin has probably gone a little bit too far in terms of the main Birds of Prey ongoing. I actually want to take a look at the next issue of this series to make sure that this storyline comes to an end in issue 6. Okay, good. It does. It does. And this is issue 7 of the series. I'm curious now. Let's just go ahead and check this one out. This is issue 7 on sale March 5th. New mission, new team. Sin is alive and back with Black Canary in Gotham. And the world didn't get destroyed, but the cost was high and nobody's exactly sure what it means yet. Shocking revelations in the wake of the Birds' first mission lead Dinah to a conspiracy against the Birds of Prey and a whole new mission. New mission, new team, hold on to your butts. Okay, really glad the focus on Birds of Prey is switching just in the next issue. I feel like the main arc of the series was maybe 1 or 2 comic books too long, but at least this one is really switching focus very soon. It looks like this one's still written by Kelly Thompson, still featuring artwork from Leonardo Romero as well, with Jordi Belair featuring colors and some letters here from Clayton Cowles too. All right, now let's go ahead and talk about one last upcoming comic book in the weeks to come. This one is Ultimate Black Panther on sale February 7th. This is one of the brand new Ultimate Comics launches over at Marvel. I am really pumped for this one. I really appreciate Brian Hill as a writer, and I think Stefano Caselli is probably one of the very best artists at Marvel Comics, period. Plus, this one is utilizing elements of Moon Knight and Black Panther together to create just a really interesting new backdrop for T'Challa. The new Ultimate Black Panther. In the wake of Ultimate Invasion, Khonshu and Ra, the force known together as Moon Knight, are seeking to expand their brutal control over the continent of Africa. In response to the lone bulwark against them, the isolated nation of Wakanda will send forth its champion, its king, the Black Panther. From the creative minds of Brian Hill and Stefano Caselli comes a bold new take on the world of Black Panther and Wakanda. So this series written over by Brian Hill. Brian Hill, really thoughtful creator over at Marvel and DC, has contributed some work over to Blade and is just a really, I would say, ambitious writer in terms of the big two. Stefano Caselli is so great at capturing just really strong character expressions. I always love it in Stefano Caselli scripts when characters are just acting like pissed off or angry, because I know there's going to be just so much expression and detail within the faces that are being rendered. We also have colors from David Curiel, and it looks like Will Moss is actually editing this book too. Okay, really fantastic stuff over with Ultimate Black Panther. I am just super excited to check out where that series is headed and to see the rest of the Ultimate books debut over with Ultimate X-Men as well. All right, so I think that is just about going to do it over for our stream today. Sadly, we didn't get the chance to touch on the Karen Gillan interview on Adventures in Poor Taste. I think there's a good chance that we'll be doing that next week. We'll be back with some brand new comic book reviews over on Tuesday for DC comic books. Plus, Wednesday, we're going to be going over Resurrection of Magneto as well. Afro SF, really good to have you over on our stream today. Don't worry at all about being late because we were very very late over to this stream. We'll have to watch and play back. Can't wait for Ultimate Black Panther. I wonder if there is an intergalactic empire. I know you're referencing like the late Ta-Nehisi Coates run. That would be so cool if they took some of those elements in that main series. I am really hoping that Ultimate Black Panther and Ultimate X-Men will be more ambitious than Ultimate Spider-Man. Once again, I want to see Marvel like really utilize the Ultimate line to push comics to like the absolute limit. I want to see something from the Ultimate Comics line that is as ambitious as Ultimate Invasion. My voice is absolutely shot. I am having such a hard time speaking. I want to thank you so much for coming to check out our stream. We will be back with some really fantastic comic book reviews Tuesday and Wednesday. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for spending your time with us. We will be back very, very soon for some brand new content.